Welcome to Secrets for an Inspirational Life with Mimi Novic, the place where every heart tells its story. Whether it's inspiration, courage or hope you need, you've come to the right place. Sit back and enjoy the journey with us. Subscribe below to be sure you don't miss future episodes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Secrets for an Inspirational Life. How are you all today? I hope that you are well. I hope that there is a little sunshine, a little pleasure, and a beautiful shower of joy within your hearts. Even though these times, as I always say, are ever-changing, and more so now, it seems, than ever before. But I sometimes wonder whether it really is like that, or is it that we are more aware of the passage of time, which, as some people would say, is all but an illusion. And that's another story for another day. But if we can move beyond that time, beyond space, we can reach each other on a completely different plane. You know, sometimes when we think about somebody and they call us or we see them, that's the sort of thing, in a very simplistic way, what I'm talking about, the heart connection. That there are so many ways that we can talk to each other from one heart to another. And that supersedes everything to do with technology, to do with our phones, to do with these material things in the world. When we can reach to each other on a level that is from the soul, we can truly make a difference in each other's lives and, most importantly, in our own life. Now, I am super delighted to welcome my very special guest today, who is Jeffery Davis, and he's all the way from Mexico. Yes, how exciting. Jeffery is a therapist and a coach who helps professionals go from frenzied to focused, so they no longer have to cash in on their health, relationships, and fulfillment to pay the bills or succeed in their life. He helps people transmute the experience of burnout to brilliance and from hustle culture to high performance. As a former high-performing corporate executive turned entrepreneur, he's all too familiar with burnout and knows what is necessary to change internal operating systems to thrive and to help people find their vocation in life. Today, he shares his journey. Welcome, dear Jeffery.
Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here and to chat with everybody and chat with you and share some things that hopefully people will find useful. Yeah.
Well, welcome to you, Jeffery. I'm
Thank you.
very, very pleased to have you here. And you are all the way from Mexico.
I am. I live in a place called San Miguel de Allende. It's a fascinating place. It's called the Heart of Mexico, and it's built on rose quartz. And it so it has this amazing energy, and it's a historic city, so it still has a bit of a European feel and an old town feel with cobblestone streets and small independent owner stores, and it's been picked as the best small city in the world for 4 years.
My goodness.
Yeah, and last year it was picked as the friendliest city in the world.
Now tell me, rose quartz, before we go on, because I love rose quartz, and I'm looking at rose quartz now. I have a large piece of rose quartz. It's one of my favorite stones. Is that something that you are into, as they say, crystals and things like that?
I believe that energy is real, and that this experience on this planet is more than just flesh and bones and the limitations that people tell us exist. And that energy reverberates between us and between living beings that we see, animals and plants, and also it's held within different rocks and stones, and each of the different stones, like rose quartz, holds a heart opening energy. And so yes, I do believe into that.
Yeah, it's something that is an extraordinary science as well, but also has a particular interest for myself. And it's also a very mystical art because I practice this type of, I suppose, healing, you could call it. And it's been something that's been part of my life for a long time. But it's interesting that you are there where there is a lot of rose quartz. And I wonder how much of that is maybe on another level that has drawn you to such a place.
That's so interesting that you say that, because the work that I do involves the heart. And I believe that the heart has our inner essence and our wisdom. And when we have a clean connection to our heart, we are the most powerful beings on earth. And I believe that the most dangerous beings on earth are people that are disconnected from their heart. And so, when you are able to do the work to tap into your emotional wisdom and into your heart, then you start being able to hear the messages that are for you, and you start living a more powerful life. And I follow that inner wisdom. And the inner wisdom told me, go to San Miguel, a place I didn't know anything about, and I didn't really research much about it before. And I learned that much like a GPS, that inner wisdom doesn't give me all of the turns at the same time or the reasoning why to do it. I just know if I make that left turn, it's going to take me towards my journey, and I listen to it. And when I get where it tells me to go, I will understand why I'm there. And when I got here, I realized when I learned about the rose quartz, and it's called the Heart of Mexico, and there really is an attachment to heart and love here, and you can feel the energy. It's palpable. That was why I was here, because that's the work that I do with people, and it improves their relationships. It helps them reduce stress in their lives, improve their connection to others. It's amazing work, and I'm so honored and thrilled to be able to help people with it.
It's a beautiful story to be able to connect in such a way energetically to a place that does in fact hold this key in a way, this opening to welcome you, in fact, with your work, and to help you and assist you in helping other people.
Yeah, I'm really honored to have heard the call, and I know what a sacred container is here for people who come here, and for myself, and this portal, it calls people. And I work with some of my one-on-one clients who will come down here for a couple of days, and we do a deep dive, and it's transformational. It really is. The work is, and the energy accelerates that work.
Yes, there's a lot to be said for that, and especially places that exude this type of energy. I find that you could be in a fantastic place, you think, in fact, with these earthly eyes, but it's really quite a stagnant energy. There's not much going on, even though for these eyes that look at the world, it looks such a vibrant place, but there's no life, there's no real feeling to it. And then you can go and sit in the middle of a field that has been energetically, I suppose, woven within us, that we can actually resonate with it, and we can have the most extraordinary experience.
Oh, amazing. It's so well said. And, when you said that, I pictured the first example, I pictured more of a city. I don't know why. And the second example, I heard you say sit outside. And then I was picturing nature. And even this place is surrounded by beautiful nature. It's high desert and there's vineyards and hot springs and things like that. And to me, it's so interesting that the internal workings of humans is called our human nature,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
we go sit in nature and we can feel the energy and it's palpable. And that energy calms our nervous system. There's actually a term in Japan called forest bathing. And so when you walk through the
mm,
forest for about 20 minutes, you're going through forest bathing. And what happens is your nervous system starts to drop. You start to lose stress and you start to connect to the nature. It's our human nature to connect to nature. We're not built to be in these electromagnetic fields in cities.
mm.
It's like that. That's tough on our bodies. So when you connect like that, the nature connects with you, and that can be, when I was a kid, I thought this was silly, and then I really understood it was things like tree hugging. When you connect
I was
with,
just thinking that as you were saying.
yes, I know. When you connect with it, it's you're receiving the energy of the tree, and the tree is receiving your energy.
Mm,
And the tree is literally grounded and grounding you. So,
mm,
you're exchanging that energy. And when you're in a forest or in nature for upwards of 20 minutes, initially the animals are like, oh, intruder, is it scary? Da, da, da. And the birds, do the warnings and animals are hiding. After 20 minutes, you become part of the landscape for them. So they
yeah.
start to accept that you're there. I mean, and it's not like Dr. Doolittle where they come over and start shaking hands. But they recognize your energy and there's a difference. So yeah,
It's
that's
very true. It's very true. I have near me, well, it's about 5 miles from me, a forest.
mm,
And it has this energy, what you talk about. And the trees are huge. They're pine trees, and some are all sorts of other trees. I'm not sure what they are. It's a pine forest, but these other trees, I'm not really sure what they are. And they're very, very, very high. And there's nothing at the bottom, but there's only some sort of foliage at the top. And when
mm,
the wind comes through there, um, it doesn't move the actual trunk of the tree. All you
mm.
see is the movement at the top. And you think to yourself, I think, how on earth hasn't that sort of keeled over or fallen over? But that in itself is a little bit, as you talk about human nature, is that if we are grounded um, in this sophisticated way of a deep sense of our own reality, then really we can reach for the stars in order to bring them down to earth.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you're saying something really important, which is it's composed of two things. Number one is the importance of grounding, meaning tapping into your power, meaning understanding and connecting to how you're feeling and your body and your nervous system. Because when your nervous system is activated, you have cloudy thinking. You react versus respond. You actually statistically lose a third of your IQ when you're activated, triggered, and in a stress response. So, you'll make decisions that later you'll regret. So the grounding is super, super important. And that leads you to a place where, you can tap into your inner wisdom and really fly and offer the world something and be connected to that offering. And it's juicy for everybody around you, and it's juicy for you too.
Yeah, very true, very true. And I love this forest bathing. I have heard of it, and it sounds simply wonderful. And especially when you're in nature. I don't know about you, Jeffrey, but there is this cleansing. There is this sort of, I suppose, joining and a union between us and the environment around us in a way that is remarkable, where we actually are able. I know that in a daily basis, wherever we are, we're in exchange of energies. But when you're in nature, somehow it takes away that burden.
It does. I just I love saying things that have a little bit of humor, but have a lot of truth in them. And I believe that we are meat antennas. We are sending and receiving information all the time, whether we're aware of it consciously and tuned into that and taking that gold and sending that gold back, or whether it's happening on a subconscious level because we're not really tuned into our body or into our inner power. We've all been in a place where we're in deep in concentration, and then we turn around and we see that somebody's walked into the room and we didn't hear them. Or we see somebody looking at us when we're, deep in reading a book or something like that, and we can feel their eyes. We can feel people. And just like that, we can feel the nature around us. And that I think is super important, because that is how we connect. And that connection comes from our heart. It doesn't come from our heads. Our heads read like an agenda. It's like, hey, honey, how was your day? Well, I went to here and I went to there and I went to there. Okay, that sounds great. It sounds like an agenda. Now tell me how your day was. Well, I saw Susie when I went here, and oh my God, she's told me this story, and it, really touched me. And now all of a sudden I can feel you. Okay? Because you're speaking from a feeling basis. You're speaking from what impacted you. You're speaking from what is important to you. And I can feel you. And I love that. And compatibility in what you did during the day is beautiful too. But the meat of who we are as humans and spirits and what we're here to do is in the heart.
1000% true. The heart has the answer for everything.
Yes.
And for me, it's something when people say to me, well, why did you do this? Why do you do this? And I will say, because my heart told me to. And a lot of the time they think I'm completely mad. Probably slightly, of course, yes.
Yes.
But look, if I don't follow my heart, I will make a mistake every step of the way.
You will. And not only will you make a mistake, but you will feel more and more disconnected, because, our heart is who we are. And, when we're connected to that and allowing that connection to thrive and breathe and be open, it blossoms and people can feel it, and it provides wisdom. And, it's like if we had this friend of ours, our best friend, and they were wise and they loved us, and, as we were, no matter flaws and all. And we were like, okay, go in this room and never talk to me. You're gonna feel that disconnection because you have this love for that person, but you never talk to them, you never connect to them. That's the same way that I look at our connection to our heart. And we don't owe anybody any explanation for what our heart tells us to do. And people who aren't really tapped into that wisdom and don't understand it will never understand what our heart is telling us, nor is it important that they understand what our heart is telling us. It's just important that we understand it, because our heart has a mission for us, and our heart tells us what we're here to do on the planet. And if we're doing other things, the more that we travel down the path of doing other things, meaning we become divergent from our heart's wisdom and our heart's purpose on this planet, the more that gap widens between what we're doing and what we should be doing. I hate to use the word should, but what our heart wants us to do. The larger that gap gets, and the larger that gap gets, what fills that gap is stress, anxiety, depression, disconnection. So we want to walk on the same path. And that path, when we're walking on the heart's path, is passion, purpose, high performance, connection. That's why we're here.
I love that. I love also that you said about shutting your friend in the room, because that is so true. And it is not such an easy thing, Jeffrey, because so many people come to me, and I'm sure come to you also, and say, but I can't hear my heart. I don't know what it's saying. And how do I know if it's my heart talking? What would you say to those people?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a fun one. It is a discovery process. I consider it like this. So your heart, and listening to your heart, your heart never yells at you. Your heart never comes at you with intense energy or anything like that, or a reaction. Those are your emotions, your nervous system talking to you, your mind talking to you, and then activating your nervous system. Your heart just has a wisdom. It just has a truth. And when something is just inherently true, you don't need to shout it at people. You could just say, you're alive, you're walking, and that's just the truth. You don't need to argue with it. And when you start to know the difference between an activated piece of information and a true piece of information, and you start to lean into it, even though that truth may activate fear, it may activate different thoughts. That's okay. Just, there's a process to follow it and just let the feelings and the reactions flow through. But once you start to hear it for the first time, I look at it like this. It's like a mother and her baby crying. That mother, once she has that child, she will be able to hear that child's scream or cry in the middle of a stadium full of people, full of loud noises and things like that. She can hear all the way through that and hear that little baby, her love, communicating to her and saying, listen to me. And that's the same thing. That connection becomes louder than anything else, because it's a connection versus noise around you. So it's cultivating that and trusting that and leaning into that. And then you develop a relationship with that and nothing gets in the way.
Wonderful. That is such a wonderful way to explain it. And Jeffrey, what exercise would you suggest to somebody who has never really listened to their heart, or has forgotten, in fact, how to? That is more the question, because I think as children, we did listen to our hearts, and somewhere along the way, I think sometimes we forget. But what would you suggest as a beginning, really, for somebody who wants to learn, I suppose, to make friends with their heart? How to do that? A simple exercise.
So this is a simple exercise, and it is, I believe, one of the most powerful exercises that you can do. It is sitting in front of the mirror for 10 minutes with yourself and looking yourself in the eyes for 10 minutes and breathing and feeling yourself and being with yourself and noticing. It's almost like a mirror meditation. Noticing, are you looking at this, your teeth? Are you criticizing your hair? Are you wanting to fidget? Are you what is in the way of you and connecting with yourself? I don't know if you've ever, or if anybody listening has ever experienced eye gazing with somebody else. It's a deeply connected.
Yes.
Yes. So it's on a soul level, it's a deeply connective exercise. And this is what you're doing when you do this. You are soul gazing with yourself and stepping past the thoughts and looking into your eyes and into your soul. And as you are there with yourself and breathing properly, meaning breathing into your abdomen versus into your chest, because when you breathe into your chest, you create a higher level of cortisol and you activate your brain thoughts and you create this cycle. So breathing deeper into your belly, slower, being with what comes up as you sit with yourself, whatever thoughts, whatever criticisms, and sending yourself love, and then receiving love. So you're literally eye gazing with yourself and opening up that portal of connection with your heart and with your soul and being with yourself in a way that people are never with themselves. And I can tell you that in a very short amount of time, as short as within a week, you will start to feel differently in your nervous system. You will start to have a different connection to yourself. There will be a little bit less noise and a little bit more connection. And as you're doing this, I would also say, notice if any tension is in your body. As you're being with yourself, this is a new exercise. And surprisingly, most people, it's very difficult to be with yourself for just 10 minutes a day. And you'll notice that if thoughts aren't coming up, then your nervous system might kind of, maybe your shoulders will raise, or maybe your breath will get a little tighter because you're trying to protect yourself, or you're trying to guard yourself from being open and vulnerable. And that's part of the connection. You need to be open and vulnerable with whatever's inside of you, because your heart, if it's been ignored for a long time, may be covered with anger. It may be covered with disappointment. It may be covered with pain and sadness. And that's okay. If you can hold space for that, you will create a connection that is a completely different experience for your life in this world.
This is a fantastic method, actually. And I think it's excellent in offering people that want to start that journey towards themselves something practical within this physical world that can open the gateways into the spiritual, because that is sometimes a difficult bridge to cross, isn't it?
It is. And there's truth in the saying that your eyes are the windows to your soul. And so this is literally opening that portal and connecting to it. And in your soul is your heart connection and your wisdom. And, I'm just so honored and thrilled to hold space for people and guide them with this. And there's so many different ways that you can do this, but the real important piece of it is to be with whatever comes up, notice whatever comes up, send yourself love and receive it, and notice your breathing.
There's a vastness, I think, in this, in the beginning of a journey, to find the real purpose. As you and I spoke before we started recording, that in order to find your true purpose, you have to go inwards. And that's something that scares so many people. To go inwards, to find what is their reason for being on this planet. And I think if we don't follow the dictates of our heart and we do not get to know our heart, is it even possible to abide on this earth in a way that can fulfill our soul's mission?
That's a great question. To me, that question sounds like this. If I'm not in my heart, meaning I'm in reaction, I'm in unhealed pain, can I live my mission in a full and enriching, contributive way in the world? And that pain is going to get in the way of you doing that. It's going to get in the way of your deepening your relationships, or having longer relationships, or having intimate relationships in a way that are so fulfilling that you as a couple or as people make a ripple out into the world. So, I'm not judging it. I'm just saying that that pain, when unaddressed in your heart, will get in the way. Much like if I scraped my ankle and I never dealt with it, and then it just got infected and I never dealt with it, and every time somebody touched it, then I screamed in pain at them, or I screamed in pain and jerked back away from them. That's how my or someone's reaction to unhealed pain would be when they're triggered, or when that part of them is touched. So it becomes very difficult to have a wholehearted experience in the world.
Yes. And for example, putting it very simply for a moment, I have a friend, and she always wanted to be with a certain type of man. And she was constantly disappointed. And I said to her, listen, it's not working this way. You're going to have to get back on your own, to be on your own. When you're on your own, clean yourself of everything that you have been through, all your ideas, all your notions of what you think you want, and let it go and just be with yourself. Anyway, it's a very long and in-depth story, but eventually, after about a year, she was always going for very rich people. She ended up being with a farmer, and she has never been happier. Because in reality, she was trying to be something that she's not, and hoping to, I think, her parents, her family, her brothers, her sisters, trying to fit in and to live up to a certain type of standard that wasn't even her standard. Now, that's put very simply for people out there to understand what I'm saying. But on a far deeper level, Jeffrey, if, for example, somebody comes to you, a client comes to you and says to you, I'm not happy. I'm not happy in my relationship. I'm not happy with my life, with my job, but I'm too afraid. And they go through this process of actually activating the center of the heart, let's say, and their life changes. And they know when they come to you, because people know when they're ready for change. How do they then continue in this journey of courage to keep going, knowing that quite possibly they will lose their entire old life? How does that transition happen in a gentle way?
Yeah. So the question, as I hear it, is what is a fear, meaning, on some level, also a familiarity with the pain of their current life. And although they're unhappy, they're familiar with that unhappiness, and they're attached to that unhappiness. And
Yes.
Transitioning to a place of potential happiness, of potential freedom, of potential personal power, of potential legacy and fulfillment is scary and unknown for them. They haven't lived in that way. They just know that where they are is unhappy and so familiar. And so, we were talking about this before. It's good to consistently stay on a path of growth and personal development. But sometimes, even though we may be listening to that input guidance and we may be in line with ourselves, sometimes there's a harder lesson we need to learn. And sometimes we do learn from loss and pain quicker and deeper than we do from pleasure. So, but the difference is that loss or pain can be a blessing. It doesn't, it's an experience. When we shift our approach to life from a judgmental narrative approach, oh, this is good, or oh, this is bad, to oh, this is an experience, and I get to decide what the meaning of life is for me. And the meaning of this difficult experience doesn't have to be good or bad. In fact, it can be such a blessing, because whether it's a divorce, and we learn about ourselves from that, we learn about how to give differently, what we're looking for, how to process the grief of that, how to reclaim our powers, how to heal ourselves so that we can go through something that might be difficult and come out even stronger. That actually builds our character. That actually builds our relationship with who we are and helps our understanding of that. Not sitting back and say, well, I like this or I don't like that. I mean, life is life. And I think with that mindset, which is a growth mindset, meaning everything is contributed versus, we are one way or we are another way, and that's a fixed mindset. So with this growth mindset, everything is contributing to my growth. Everything is for my best interest. I claim 100% responsibility for my experience of everything. That doesn't mean I blame myself or blame anybody else. That means that I claim my power for my experience, meaning I take that experience and that energy and I transmute it to something more beautiful. I take that coal that was given to me and I put it through a process that produces diamonds and beauty in the world.
How beautiful. My goodness, what a lovely way to put it, Jeffrey. Thank you for that. What a beautiful way, really. And that is what your work is all about, isn't it?
It is. It's really about leaning into life, leaning into your inner wisdom, and creating from that place of power and personal responsibility and love. Because love is I believe love is the most healing, amazing power on the planet. And like I said at the beginning, which is when you're connected to that, you radiate and you're powerful, and powerful in a way of not power over someone, but power as in empowered. Like I have personal power for the creation of my experience. And that ripples out to other people. We teach other people how to treat us. And we also model how people can experience a better life, how they can experience things in a different way. Your show is one of those beautiful gems that brings that to light, that there is a model out there. There is possibility and opportunity in every experience, no matter where you start from, no matter what you're going through. And that's the beauty of what you're offering in the world. And that's the beauty of what we all can offer in the world. And when we have tapped into that inner power, we vibrate as energetic beings at a different level. It affects our clarity of decisions. It affects our immune system. It affects our connection to other people. They can feel us when we walk in connected to that, our power, our heart. People gravitate to us. They gravitate to us with opportunity. They gravitate to us with love and connection. I'm not saying that, life all of a sudden turns to rainbows and puppy dogs. I'm saying that you create your experience of rainbows and puppy dogs internally and not in a gaslighting way. If something happens, you can have gratitude for it. You can have gratitude. I know people who have had serious things happen to them. And, I've gone through different things. And when you look at it as a gift and with gratitude, it changes you as a person. It changes your vibration. It changes how people see you. It changes what they see as a possibility. It changes your contribution in the world. And it's you creating your experience from circumstances as opposed to living a life of reaction to circumstances. Two completely different experiences. And that's what I help people do. And that's by connecting with their heart, shifting, small shifts in mindset, and removing the emotional blocks that are in their way and tapping into that energetic meat antenna. What is it telling me? What is the communication from the world around? What is the communication from my heart? And how is that being reflected in my body? My body communicates with me all the time that way.
And you speak so wisely, Jeffrey, and so eloquently that one must think and know that you must have been through quite a journey or journeys yourself in order to speak like this, because it isn't just words. As you're speaking now, it is actually reaching my heart because it comes from the heart. Tell us a little bit about your journey of how did you become so wise? My goodness.
Thank you for saying that. It's so interesting. I feel moved by you seeing and feeling me so clearly. I most definitely have traveled a journey. I was a clever person, meaning I lived in my head. I wasn't completely disconnected from my heart, but I didn't really have a relationship with myself like I do now. As a boy, turned into a man. Up and before I did this, the work that I done with myself and I continue to do with myself, I had what I think is a common experience that men have and many people have, but especially men, which is I cried maybe at my first breakup. I cried when somebody important to me died, and maybe one other time. So maybe I cried 3 times in my life, and they were very special occasions. And if somebody around me cried, I was like, "Are you okay? How can I help you?" And without really understanding that emotions are healthy and experiencing them is healthy. And if I laugh, you don't need to fix that. If I cry, you don't need to fix that either. In fact, just being with someone and listening and holding space and really hearing what they're going through, or just feeling it, is the fix. And that took me some amount of time to understand and to do. And so there was a limit on not self-imposed necessarily, but also self-imposed by the amount of work that I had done on how deeply I could connect. And when I had triggers or feelings come up, I didn't know how to communicate that in a healthy way. So I would either be angry or withdraw or carry resentment or disappear for a while until it just kind of, disappeared out of my emotional space. That didn't mean it disappeared out of my heart. It just became another block. So I was clever and successful, but eventually I had to encounter myself and start to do the real work. And when I did, I just became okay with myself. I became okay with the fact that my heart and my soul needed to breathe. And that came out for a while just as tears. They just started flowing. And I was like, okay, I'm breathing and there's water coming out of my eyes. Doesn't matter. I don't even need to know why. I just know that my body and my heart need to release this. And so I just became okay with releasing and freeing my heart and having all that come out. And part of that process was, I've said this before, acting saved my life. So when I was in corporate, I hit that wall of, is this all there is? What am I here to do? Who am I? And when I really started answering that question, what sliver of my life is really connecting and igniting me? Because 90% or more is not. And it was really starting to catch up with me. And what I realized, this was interesting, and everything flowed from this. I realized I had everything upside down. I realized that I was operating from my head and not my heart. And what would happen if I looked at the world through my heart? If I looked, I was still in corporate at this time, so I used this analogy. If I ran my life using my heart as my CEO and my visionary and my leader, and my head as my personal assistant. So my heart says, go to San Miguel. And my head says, okay, let me look for flights. And let me look for a place to stay. I'll take care of the arrangements. So I started to operate that way. And it was a completely different way of doing it. I felt a lot less clever. I felt a lot more present, which was initially a disorienting feeling, because it felt like I couldn't control anything. So I started letting go of control. I was a very controlling person. I started letting go of knowing all the answers because of my cleverness, and I started being present, and I started forgiving myself, and I started forgiving other people and letting go of the resentments in my heart, which was super important. And then this was amazing. Then I started going back to my family and cleaning up anything that was there. It was, the relationships were okay, but imagine sitting down with a sibling and saying, so what kind of brother was I? Can you tell me how I can be a better brother to you? Is there anything I need to clean up? Please tell me. And listening for those answers, completely open to anything that they say. And, and going back to my parents, and I sat down with my father and I said, so I know we grew up in the same house. I know we had the same experience, and we had not remotely the same experience. I was a little boy, you were a man, you had a child. I didn't know what a child, I was a child. I mean, there was nothing, you grew up in a time that I didn't grow up in, you grew up in a different family that I'm growing up in. I mean, there was nothing really about our experience that was the same, except that we shared the same space. So introducing myself to him and having him, like treating him as somebody I'm just now meeting who might have some wisdom for me and that I truly wanted to know. And I used what I consider the two most important tools to connect both to yourself or someone else. The first one is curiosity, just complete non-judgmental curiosity. And the second one is compassion, just feeling and being there with whatever the answer is. So asking for the answer and then being there with your heart open for whatever the answer is. And that was transformative with my relationship with my father completely, and my mother and my brother. And that work with my parents was key and critical, and the forgiveness was key and critical for me to start to shift from this essentially ego-driven, disconnected man who, didn't know how to express his feelings, didn't know how to process them, and felt them intensely. So it was a process that was necessary, but it was a long road for me, and it started from a point of pain, in terms of emotional pain, disconnection in terms of boredom with success, with my with the life that I had crafted, and my experience of life. And then really digging down into what is it that ignites me? How do I connect with the deeper joy in being alive? And so it was, flipping that arrangement, living in and cultivating a state of gratitude, doing the mirror work, and multiple other small shifts that generate enormous and significant impact in our lives, both in terms of connection, in terms of fulfillment, and in terms of energy management, and in terms of what we're contributing into the world.
Amazing. What a story. Absolutely amazing. And as I was listening to it, I love that you have a CEO now, which is your heart. I think that's a fantastic way to look at it. And how, as I was listening to it, Jeffrey, I was thinking, was there a pivotal moment in your life that made you decide to take that other road?
There were a couple pivotal moments, and I'll say one thing also is that as I made these decisions, I started to notice that the seeds that the beautiful angels along the way in my journey had planted that I couldn't even begin to understand. The things that they had said to me, that I was like, yeah, okay, great, thanks. I all of a sudden I understood the wisdom that people were giving me because I was open to it. All of a sudden I understood how to connect with that wisdom. And so the I guess the real pivotal moment was when I was in San Francisco in the corporate world, and I had, from the external view of things, I had a nice life. I mean, I lived in a great area, all the stuff and the friends and the things to do. And it was quite fun and quite exciting and all kinds of things. But internally, there was a question that was being asked in terms of pain, and the pain showed up in dissatisfaction and also showed up in some level of lack of energy and almost like a depression. Just like I could no longer push anymore to do something that I couldn't find joy and impact in and connection in to my heart. And I didn't know that was what's going on. It just showed up for me as burnout and stress and overwhelm. And that's how it occurred to me. But as I learned, the actual cause was the disconnection to my heart that I had for so long, and my disconnection from emotions and from my internal wisdom and for why I'm here. So I've always been a curious person, and I started asking myself questions, and I started really listening and being open to everyone around me. So when that pain showed up, I really leaned into, like, what is it that ignites me in this life of disconnection and pain? And it was the little bit of acting in projects that I did. And the projects that I was doing acting wise were just, they were small independent projects, but they really lit me up. And the reason they lit me up was I empathetically was able to connect to people. And that was really where the juice was for me. I realized that as a kid, I have always been, throughout my life, interested in the human story and interested in what makes people tick. And I articulated that as a thought when I was a kid. I wish I could clone myself and have many lives and different experiences and things like that. And I certainly have had many experiences. But when you step into a character And in order to do that as an actor, you need to step into that character with empathy and fully, and understand how that character got to where they are, not judging them at all. And that is truly how you connect with everybody on the planet. That's how you connect with yourself. And so that pain led me to ask the question of, what is it that ignites me? Who am I? And what am I here to do? And those are the most powerful questions I think you can ask yourself ever. And when I started to lean into those, I sold my things in San Francisco. I left my corporate work, and I moved to act in Los Angeles, which actually was a journey of personal development. And because in order to act, I had to address all the places that I had hidden and hadn't looked at. And that was a requirement of what I was stepping into. And so in order to do that work, I noticed that it certainly improved my acting, but most importantly, it started to change my life. And I was like, there's something here, this thing that I've avoided all my life, stepping inside my heart and addressing the pain is really actually the juice. And all of these triggers and this wound that I had of not being seen, actually, when I heal that, it becomes a superpower of being able to see other people, because I hold space for and understand how to be seen, because I see myself deeply and I don't put that responsibility on anybody else. And when I do that, I've cultivated that gem, that superpower to connect with other people, because there's nothing in the way, and I know how to do it on a level that resonates with me. So I know how to do it on a level that resonates with other people.
So in effect, unless we can really see ourselves, we can't really see anybody else.
It becomes exceedingly difficult to actually see somebody else. And when I say see them, I mean through the heart and feel them. And that's why the answer to your question earlier, the first thing to do is to sit with yourself and see and feel yourself in the mirror, and connect on a soul level with yourself. And what are you communicating? How are you talking to yourself? What are you holding hidden? What pain wants to come up and be seen? Because when it comes up and is seen again, the seeing and the listening is the fix.
And it's a very brave journey.
It is. And I look at it like turning the Titanic. When you first start to do it, it's a slow turn and it's a little difficult, and it's not. And then as you do it more and more, and you start to lean into a way of life of supporting your heart and your healing and operating in that way, so that you're constantly processing, you're in a state of curiosity, you're in a state of appreciation for your life, no matter what's happening, you're in a state of being present with your life, then you start to develop that muscle and that agility, and you go from being a Titanic with a slow turn to being a speedboat, where you can turn with more agility and more speed, and process things in a couple minutes, or much quicker than you would before you started having that experience of it. And that's, I think, what's super important about having a support system around you that helps you do that, and that mirrors that and supports that. And you can see that modeled. So whether it's your show, whether it's a therapist, or whether it's myself as a coach, or whether it's a person that has done that journey, who's a supportive friend, whatever that happens to be, people will help support that journey much faster than you by yourself with a book. There's a big difference between information and integration. So there's people that I work with, and most people on the planet are smart. They know, what to do, or, they know something's wrong, but making that change when you have the information is, as you say, courageous. It is one of the most courageous things that you can do on the planet in your life, and it's a courageous heart that does that, and the world benefits from that.
It certainly does. And I think one of the most important things is to remain consistent in this. It is not a 1-minute wonder, the heart. It's a journey of a lifetime. And to be patient with oneself also, to reach this state of being, as opposed to talking about it, you're actually living it. And I think that's why when you talk, Jeffery, I get a sense that you're living it.
It's I wouldn't live it any other way, to be honest with you. It's changed everything about my experience. Most importantly, it's changed my experience with and of other people. And because I'm approaching other people from a different place, my experience with them and their experience of me is completely different. I have no ego around it. I do notice that since I've done this work, I hear things I've never heard before in my life. Things like, I've never had a conversation like this before. I've had people cry in the course of a minute and a half of talking with me, because there's a space of safety that I energetically provide, because I've created that space internally. And so people can feel that. And that's a very different experience than you can get in the world interacting with other people and with the world around us. It's almost like they're stepping into the energy of nature. We as humans are built to co-regulate our nervous systems with other people. That's why it's important who we're around. That's why our parents are so important, whether even if they're saying something or not, how they feel about us, and that comes out in just a word or 2 words or just no words. And that's, part of being this meat antenna sending and receiving information. So yes, it
is the space. It is unusual because not everybody allows people that infinite space to be themselves. And that's the difference.
And I do want to note that part of that space and that relationship, which is the most important one with yourself, is understanding what your boundaries might be. That doesn't mean that your boundaries are, if you say that, I'm never going to talk to you again. It could. And it could be, my boundary is that if you say that, I'm actually going to speak to you about that. So I'm going to talk to you without reacting, without pulling away and leave and abandoning you like most people do when you act that way. I'm actually going to speak to you from your heart so that you understand the impact of how you're behaving and whether that makes a difference at this moment, or whether you continue to create chaos around you until one day you remember the seed that I planted, or it starts to sprout itself.
Yes. And I think there is a difference to people that have actually gone through something and have experienced it themselves, they are able to welcome people into a space that somehow is suspended above earth. That's the only way, really, I can explain it, in that they give you the freedom, such as you do, the freedom to be able to feel, to be able to speak as your heart wants to. Because many people don't want to give you that freedom. They don't want you to be able to be free to express yourself. They would rather, in fact, have you sitting on the porch than invite you in to their home. And the home being one's whole hemisphere of one's being. And that's a huge difference. And I think we know that when we meet somebody, is who is welcoming us in our completeness.
Yes. And there's so much gold in what you're saying. And our completeness. This is, just a sliver of the work that I do, but our completeness incorporates and integrates our messiness and the things that we judge as, not good and that has happened. When we integrate all of that, we are in our completeness. We are wholehearted. We have space for someone in their emotional mess, for someone who's still working through something, someone who's just triggered in a human way, which happens, to all of us, and maybe just needs the support or the fix of listening and a space where they can be and be in whatever space they're at, and that's profound. That's healing. I think one of my favorite quotes is, "We're all just walking each other home."
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure,
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
And it's been an absolute pleasure, I have to say, Jeffrey, to have you on here today. Really, I have smiled throughout at some of the things that you have said, because they have deeply resonated with me, as I'm sure they have with the audience out there. Because, as I said, you speak so beautifully and so truthfully. And that is really a rarity and a precious gift.
I'm so grateful for what you're doing in the world, and so honored to be included in the energy that you're putting in the world. And I yeah, I really am thankful for your audience for showing up and leaning in to learn more and to tap into more and to want to see more and to want more out of life, because places like your format, your forum, and your voice are offering that place where people can see that modeled, where people can see hope, where they can see opportunity, where they can see that they're not flawed. They just haven't uncovered the gold fully yet. And that's possible for anybody at any time. And everybody listening to this, I feel and I know that everybody listening to this is whole, perfect, and complete. And I wish everybody the best. I'm here for anybody, and energetically or actually physically, if there's a conversation somebody wants to have. But I'm just so moved by what you're doing here, and grateful to be a part of it. So thank you.
Oh, it's very kind of you. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. And really, I'm grateful that you have honored us with your presence and your wisdom. It's something that is so desperately needed out there. And I have been reminded also by your wonderful words of so many truths that sometimes we ourselves forget in our life. So I'm very thankful for that. Now, before you go, for people that would like to contact you and find out more about your work, where can they do that, Jeffrey?
Sure. They can either, I have multiple places where they can go. I have a YouTube channel where they can go with Jeffery Davis. So they can watch some videos, and certainly I will post this amazing video there also. So I could be found there. And then also I have a website where if they'd like to sign up for a newsletter, they can do that. And that's Jeffery Davis Coach. And just so everybody knows, my name is spelled Jeffery Davis, Davis. And then I'm also running next week will be the first one, but I'll be running several of them. Free 5-day challenge called Life on Purpose, about how to tap into your passion, purpose, and increase your performance and satisfaction out of life. So that's free. And if somebody wanted to go to that Google Facebook page or Facebook group, then there's content there I'll be producing this week, and they could view that in the recordings, or I'll be doing several of those throughout the year that they could sign up for. So, I'm really committed to helping people, and, there's some of my best stuff is in the 5-day challenge. And, that's really, when I look at who am I and what am I here to do, to me, it's clear that my legacy is to leave a legacy of love. And yeah, and that means connection. And what that does is it creates more connection in the world, that models it, and when people feel that resonance to my legacy and my commitment to my energy that I'm putting out there, it creates more peace. It creates an opportunity for people to tap into their power and to live lives of whatever their legacy is. And, it doesn't, our legacies are all as important as each other, whether that's helping someone with one person with one thing, or raising a family, or speaking to millions of people. You don't know the ripple effect. You could help one person, and that person could help one other person, and that second person could be somebody who reaches millions of people. So you don't know. And so the generosity of spirit and contribution, connection, and love is super important, because everything energetically that we put out ripples out through one person and another person, and over, through our thoughts, through our energy, and through our actions.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And it is wonderful. And I, for sure, can feel the sincerity of your message. And I am sure that everybody out there also can share in that. And as long as we can go on sharing this beautiful and magnificent love for each other, for everybody out there, there is a chance not to give up in life, but to contact you, Jeffery, also on these different platforms where you can help them find their true purpose.
I have thank you so much. I have one other thing that occurred to me, and I'm listening. So
Yes.
yeah, it's telling me to share my email, so anybody can write me if they'd like. And my email is jeffery@inspiring-breakthroughs.com.
Okay. And what was your website address again?
Is jeffreydaviscoach.com, Jeffery Davis, Davis, coach.com. And and the Facebook group is Life on Purpose.
And you're having the event. What date is that exactly?
Well, the first of these this year starts on tomorrow, on Monday, and runs through Friday, and that will be recorded. It'll be live, and then that'll be up for a couple weeks after that, and then I'll be doing another one that'll have additional information and some of the same information.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeffrey, again. I would love to invite you back again one day and to share some more precious, you know, wonderful stories and wonderful gems of wisdom. You are welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day. I think it's still day there, isn't it?
It is. It's 1:27 in the day.
Well, I wish you a wonderful day and a peaceful evening tonight. And thank you once again, sincerely, for coming on.
Thank you very much. Have a beautiful evening and a wonderful week. And thank you so much for all you're doing and having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Jeffery Davis. What a fantastic talk. And I'm so grateful, really, that there are so many beautiful listeners out there who take the time to write and to give such beautiful comments about all the wonderful people that come on and share their lives with me and, of course, with you out there. Until next time, do something beautiful for yourselves and enjoy your life. Take care and lots of love.
Thank you for listening to Secrets for an Inspirational Life, brought to you by your host, Mimi Novic. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and see you in the next episode. For more information about Mimi Novic and her books, music, and inspirational work, take a look at her website, www.miminovic.co.uk.